Welcome back to the Primal Lab. So today, what I want to focus on is, now that we have a sit spot and have a sense of what that might be, today we're going to be focusing on something that is a practice that we can be doing at our sit spot. Beyond that, it's a practice you can be doing all the time, actually. This is not just limited to your sit spot. This is going to be something that changes the way you kind of move through the world. And so there's several elements to this, but basically, just to give you kind of an overview, we call it the sense meditation, and this is a way of looking at meditation, specifically mindfulness meditation. It's a version of that, you could say, that's used for nature practice or nature connection, and and self-awareness. And I first encountered this specific way of looking at sense meditation through John Young at Wilderness Awareness School when they were teaching their art of mentoring and their kimono training. So, so the sense meditation is one of the simplest meditations you can do, and that's one reason I include it here, because I feel like it is a primal form of meditation. And it's very easy. It's not hard, but there is a little bit of structure to it that makes it work better for you, or it makes you get a little more out of it. So that's what I want to go over today. So just meditation in general, just to look at that. Perhaps a simple way of thinking of meditation is it's developing the skill of noticing what you're noticing, or observing how you think and how you feel and how you act. So it's the skill of training yourself to develop what we refer to as a witness. It's like that, having that perspective that can watch your experience and without judgment, and just observe it. And we've all had that experience. So this is actually a very natural thing that we do. But when we train it and point it back at ourselves, you might meditate on a thought or a problem, or a situation, or when you go back and reflect on things, that kind of thing. But when we do that just on our experience itself, it's kind of like looking in a mirror in a way. And so this is I think another cool thing about it is this it's also referred to as this metacognition, this ability to think about how you think, or observe who you are, observe your own consciousness, is something that seems to be one of our human gifts or human attributes that I don't want to say makes us special, but it certainly seems to make us unique, and has led to who we are. So this is a very primal skill, a very deep thing, and there's many types, many ways of approaching meditation, historically, culturally, and so to cut through it and look at just the core principles, we're just starting with this sense meditation, this very simple thing. So even if you do meditate, this is something you can add to your practice. It's just a simple adjustment, and it's something you can do throughout the day. Again, you don't have to have a special place, or you don't have to have a special way of sitting, or a special music or anything like that. No incense. You can have all those things. In fact, you can have anything. This is something that I find I'll do if I'm waiting in a line somewhere, or traveling and have some extra time, maybe sitting in the airplane waiting for it to taxi, or just throughout the day, especially if I notice something's off. It's the first kind of state I'll shift into. So that's another thing to mention. Meditation is about helping you access different states of being. So all the time within your body mind, you have access to these different states, and some of them are profound and kind of famous. These enlightened states or visionary states that people get, whether it's through intense transformative practices, or even drugs, or whatever it takes to get into this state, right? Or extreme hardship. But it can also, those states can also be touched with practice and small incremental growth, which, in a way is preferable to having to do some crazy ordeal, or, you don't want to be doing that all the time. So, what the states offer you is basically a interruption into your ordinary way of being that allows you, which is a necessary part of gaining insight or having accessing solutions to problems or creativity. This is how we nudge ourselves out of our ordinary boundaries so that we are able to notice what we're not seeing, see our blind spots. So that's another purpose for meditation. So not to mention it's just healthy and allows you to kind of find your optimal state, and it's a very healthy way of being because it actually it requires a certain level of relaxation and letting go, and so that's always helpful, especially if you're have a stressful lifestyle. So other benefits that we'll be looking at is sense meditation is basically a baseline, and we'll talk about baseline more, but it's a kind of a constant or a ordinary way of, if you are trying to connect to nature or live with nature, or let's say you're hunting or you're stalking something, or you're trying, or even just need to survive, if you're tracking or need to survive, the man versus nature concept of struggling to survive is not going to get you very far in those situations. You will need to, of course, tap into all of your resources and become powerful and access your power and your drive and your focus and all of that. But you also want to point that in the right direction and not be resisting the ultimate forces of nature that will just absorb that kind of energy and chew it up. So the I'm just noticing the grass is so pretty right now. It's just growing these different layers of color. I was noticing it because I'm in wide angle vision, and we'll come back to that. But so when you are connecting with nature or trying to do something challenging in nature, it might be trying to build a fire or find food or just move through a difficult environment. What the sense meditation gives you is the ability to connect to reality and not live through your own interpretation of reality that's often clouding the true story. So, and why that's so important is, when you are interfaced with nature, I keep calling it nature, but when you're interfaced with the wild directly, in other words, if you don't get the fire, there's going to be no fire, and you're going to suffer the consequences, whether that means freezing cold or wet or no food or whatever, and that's just it, and a couple more choices like that, and you may not be around to make any more bad choices. So there's something direct and honest about nature, and when we're in sense meditation, it allows us to perceive reality more directly and more clearly, and get more true feedback, which is extremely important if you're trying to survive or tracking for that matter. So this is a technique or a practice that allows you to open up all of your senses in ways that are extraordinary and allow you to, they're actually totally natural. It allows you to get back to that natural state where you will pick up things that you would have otherwise missed in your ordinary person mode, So anyway, let's look at how this goes together. So to start, I'm mentioning doing this at your sit spot, but obviously you can do this anywhere, as I mentioned and as you'll see. So it requires no special conditions. It does require a couple fundamental things, as do all meditations. One is a sense of our ability to physically relax. Not totally physically, like you don't have to lay down or anything. You could be walking, that's relaxed, but you need to be out of fight or flight, basically. and we're often in a low grade of fight or flight in our ordinary life because we're thinking about, going to, what time we got to get up or what we got to do after work or whatever, and it just brings us a certain level of stress. So we want to reduce that stress response. And cool thing is, once you practice this meditation and get good at it, just the practice itself will reduce the stress response. So, but at first, we want to start to diminish your stress. And so you may need to find, for now, an environment that's not going to distract you. You don't want to have something overwhelming going on right around you, people talking and stuff. As long as you're able to not be distracted, though, you can really do this in any environment. Everything's part of the meditation with this, so it's not a beautiful thing about it. So anyway, so you need to be comfortable, relaxed, able to transcend the distractions around you. So and then we're going to be using your senses as a sort of a focusing point. Okay, so because your mind is going to wander and try to do different things, and what we end up doing with the sense meditation, instead of trying to tell the mind, do this, like some meditations make it grab onto something to distract, maybe it's a word or an image or a sound or whatever, we're going to diffuse, we're going to fill up your awareness and your senses so much that they kind of become still and quiet. But it's a full quiet, and it really leads to a sense of being absorbed in your world in the moment. So it steps out of time and it steps into this steps into reality, the moment. So with those basic things, if you can set that up, then you're ready to do this practice. So once you've got a comfortable place and are free from major distractions, we're going to start with, we have our five senses, and we're going to be using those. And so we're going to start with our vision, because as humans, we are visually dominant creatures. So our vision has a very powerful stimulus upon our body mind, right? So the amount of visual information we take in is huge compared to, like, a mole or something that's virtually blind. And they have other compensations. So, but for us, we're very visual. And so what we're going to do with our eyes is start by looking softly. Think of this as soft focus. You're going to look in a direction. It's best done outside for now, so that you can really kind of play along with the instructions here. So perhaps you can see behind me this horizon-looking transition area where the grass meets the trees here, right? But wherever you perceive that the horizon would be from your vision, so I'm seeing it in front of me here, you're going to look that direction and let anything, catch your attention, as long as it's a comfortable and fairly far away and a comfortable position for your head and everything. I'm just going to let that, right now, to me, it's the tip of a branch that's lit up, and it's just kind of in the center of my field of vision. And I'm going to just lightly focus on that for a second. And when I focus on it, I'm going to, from that point, start to expand my attention and my focus of vision in a sphere, not just a circle. You can start with a circle, but also close and far, So when I expand that in this sphere of awareness all the way out slowly, and only at the speed that I can kind of see everything, and I still see that point in the distance. And then, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to wiggle my fingers at the edge and just kind of see my fingers wiggling. This is my peripheral vision now, right? While I'm looking at that point. And with this finger wiggling out here at the edges, I'm going to see all the movements in my field of vision. I got a little bit of grass that's just lightly moving right now. Got some insects flying by. Excuse me. All right. So you're going to see everything in your field of vision. High and low. You need to do a little movement to see that. But you want to see the whole field of vision as one frame, as one thing. So we call this wide angle vision. This is something that I learned initially from Tom Brown Jr. And in wide angle vision, it's actually a very relaxing, deep state of awareness that we are able to, it opens up a alpha state, brings us more into an alpha state, which is a desirable kind of baseline, optimal performance state. And it also opens up our right brain a little more, because how we're going to look, instead of seeing things like saying, oh, that's a leaf and that's a tree and that's a bug and that's, you know, and that's grass, what you're actually going to do is define it in terms, because we will define it, your brain's going to want to do this, you're just going to allow it to define it in terms of qualities and characteristics instead of names and labels. So you're not going to categorize things. But you're going to allow yourself to describe if you need to, and sometimes you'll lead this. There will be a included meditation, audio meditation in this class too, if you want to listen to that and follow along. So to get an idea of how to do this, we just want to cue your senses. So, for example, I might look for, just notice all the movement in my field of vision. So movement doesn't describe insect, grass, leaf, right? It's just motion. And now I'm going to shift my awareness to notice texture, or color and shade. Looking at the shadow and light. I might even go to or look for the space between things. So the space and the form, And so that's kind of the way we're seeing. And it's everything, like from the ground right below me here, I can see the little tiny daisies on the ground, to even the sky, and letting everything in between have equal value. This is wide angle vision. And as Tom Brown talks about, this is the vision that if you are stalking or looking for something, or wandering in the wilderness and looking for an animal or a tool or anything like that, this is how you're going to see it. This is how you catch motion in the corner of your eye. You'll see an ear twitch or something like that, right? So, so that's how we start. We start with the eyes. Allow yourself to be pulled into this soft focus and into this expanded wide-angle vision and kind of 3D vision, and then go through these different attributes of vision. And you'll notice that it just softens your whole body, and it softens your attention and your mind, and you get into this different zone, right? And that's what we want. So from there, let me go to the ears next. And just relaxing. You're going to allow your sense of hearing. You can think of this a couple ways. You can let your hearing expand out all the way around you. That's the neat thing about hearing, is you can hear behind you, in front of you, above you and below you. You don't have to see it, right? I hear a bird behind me right now, but you can't see it. But you might notice, what's the farthest, most distant sound you can detect, right? Still seeing everything, by the way, and we're going to layer and stack these senses. You may want to isolate them at first to practice, but eventually you're going to layer them all together. So still seeing everything around me, I'm going to listen and notice the qualities, again, of the sounds, right? So I'm not listening for anything in particular. I'm just letting whatever sounds there are. I hear sounds on the highway out there, but I'm not going to say, probably sounds like a motorcycle. Don't care about that right now. Just going to go with tone, volume. I don't know if you can hear that, but what's the range and quality of these sounds? The pitch. intensity. How do you feel it in your body, these sounds, right? So once you go through the sounds and doing the same thing all the way around you, layering that, still seeing everything while you're holding that wide angle vision, hearing everything around you. The next thing I like to do is kind of starts to bridge feeling and smell, but is just notice your breathing. And as you're breathing, noticing the smells in the air. Perhaps you can distinguish qualities of smells, intensities, even locations. They might drift by, you know. After you do this for a while, that bird call, I don't know if you could hear that, but what happens is these things start to kind of merge, and you start to feel a bird call in your body, or even imagine what it looks like. Anyway, so after you do the smells, you're going to go through all the tastes, which can be kind of challenging, especially if you haven't eaten anything for a while. But your mouth and your sense of smell and taste are interesting because they both give you a lot of internal, they're chemical, you know, they go into you and they are informing you on a chemical level, whereas sound and light are energetic, you know, radiation and air pressure. So just noticing smell and taste and layering that on top of hearing. And then finally, we're going to go to feel and your sense of touch. So if you're standing or sitting, just noticing what your contact point is on the ground, on the earth. And notice how your clothing is tugging on you or sitting on you or whatever, the feel of things. It's funny, you might become suddenly very, very aware of being scratchy or whatever, but you just kind of let that go. What does scratchy feel like, you know? And is it burn or is it prickly, and how long does it last, and it finally fades out? Just kind of visiting all of these senses. So noticing the surface of your skin, and then dropping into your center and noticing your internal space and noticing your balance, noticing maybe your pulse and your breathing, noticing your alignment of your spine, any tension and soreness or anything like that, right? So we're just going through these layers of feeling now. And you know, after you scan your whole body and get a sense of feeling, you may want to go a little deeper and even go into like, how are you feeling, like your emotional state. You know, can you identify what emotion you're experiencing? And we're not going to think about, well, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling tired or whatever. You're actually going to look at it in terms of qualities again. So you might be like, well, I feel kind of like heavy here. It's like a knot, you know, or I feel a tingling down my spine, or I feel like my legs are just heavy, or I feel like my head is, I feel like I'm up and out of my body, you know. All of those things you want to just notice, and you're not going to try and change anything. That's the cool thing. Just like seeing, I mean, what are you going to change, right? You could look at something else, but you're just going to allow all of these senses to inform you and just be, and you're just going to be the noticer, just the witness. So so once you've gone from all the way out to all the way in, you may want to go from your deepest center, you know, how am I feeling, what am I feeling, and all the way back out, and then just kind of merge them all. So where this kind of ends up is what we call a synesthesia, which is a blending of senses. And as you do layer upon layer of senses, you'll notice that your awareness becomes more and more busy or full with sensory information. You're attending to everything, right? And it quiets your mind, because you cannot have that much awareness and also a conversation over here, you know. But you will still notice what we call thoughts floating by, or depending on what mood you're in, maybe they're hard to deal with. But you know, when you notice your thoughts, that's another part of the meditation. You're not trying to get rid of them. You're not trying to like quiet them or anything like that. You're just, again, your thoughts are part of the landscape. Maybe it's the internal landscape. So you may notice a moment of really cool kind of nowness or quietness, and then this like little thought comes floating by, right? of something that happened earlier, or who knows what. It's amazing what gets released when we're relaxing. And so you're just going to notice it. What's its quality? How does it start? How intense is it compared to everything else? And does it have a direction of travel? How do you feel? What's the response in your body? All those things. You just notice this whole swirl of activity of your experience, and then let it taper off. And you'll notice that they don't last forever. I mean, it might be followed by another thought called, well, that didn't last forever, but that's also a thought, right? So, whenever you get pulled into, if you're thinking a lot, you can focus on your breathing. That'll bring you back. You can focus back onto your seeing, whatever you need to do. And just don't judge your experience. So meditation is it's not what you're focusing on, it's the process of this dance of just noticing where your awareness goes, and then gently bringing it back. Not being harsh, and not trying to say like, I can't do this or anything. None of that. You're just witnessing your experience, which includes the doubts and includes the thinking that you're not doing it and all that. That actually is meditation. So you may want to do this for try and do it for 20 minutes at your sit spot. You may want to do it for 2 minutes, whatever. But it is a core practice, and something that's going to be a way that we bring in tons of information for all of our other skills. Something I'll be referring to a lot in the whole Primal Lab experience. So I think for now, that's the description, and have fun with it, and watch the recording if you see one on the bottom of this or down on this exercise or this lesson, and look forward to seeing you next time. Take care and keep going.